Hi, and welcome back to another episode of SEO On Air. I'm your host, Aaron, and today we have Dr. Kate Blake, Content and SEO Director at Big C. We talk about how NLP can help improve content led SEO, how to integrate SEO and content creation for a seamless experience, and how Google's search generative experience impacts SEO. I hope you enjoy this episode. So, Dr. Kate, can you tell us a bit of that story of how the doctor part came to play? I believe you did a PhD in English and was studying at Indiana University.
I did. Yeah, that's exactly right. So I started at Indiana University. My research was on Shakespeare, specifically Shakespeare and the way that later writers remembered him. So it was a lot of stuff about memory and history, and I really enjoyed it. And then from there, when I graduated, I was lucky enough to get a position immediately working as a visiting assistant professor of Shakespeare, and so I did that for 5 years, and it was an incredible experience. So, obviously, that gave me a pretty strong background in writing and research, and I enjoyed teaching, and I felt I was good at it, but I think, I just wanted a change after a while, and I
Right.
had accomplished a lot, and I felt like I kinda did the things that I set out to do. I had one journal that I really wanted to get into, and I got into it, and then from there, I was like, "I feel like I've run the course with this." So, I had a friend who was in marketing, and I was doing a little marketing work on the side, copywriting. Originally, I started in social media because I had a big social media following on Twitter, and so from there, I realized I was pretty actually interested in data and data analysis, and I started taking some classes in that. And so I was trying to figure out how I could leverage my writing skills to get into data and do more with data. And SEO seemed to be the obvious way. And I had already been, picking up SEO skills from copywriting, and I had learned a lot of copywriting through SEO. So that was sort of the transition there. And then I was able to get a position at Pluralsight, and now I'm here, Director of Content and SEO at Big C.
At Big C. Yeah,
Yeah.
sorry. I was going to mention, how has the journey been at Big C? Because I think while looking at your profile, you started off with copywriting, but then there was a little bit of a break, I believe.
Yes. So I copywrote for them for about a year. And at the time, I was still in academia. So I was only doing it on the side. And like I said, I started off just doing social media. And then I started doing like more web copy and blogs. Um, and so I think that originally, they had wanted to bring me on as a full-time copywriter, and there was a couple months there where I was a full-time contractor for them, but they didn't have any SEO positions at the time, and that's really what I wanted to do. So I was there was maybe like a month in between the end when I decided not to renew my contract in academia and then working at Pluralsight. So I yeah, I was working full time for them, and then I found this Pluralsight position, and they wanted me because they didn't have a writer, anyone who really did content. So from there, though, when I had been at Pluralsight for a while, and I got some really good results with SEO and with content refresh in particular, um, Big C opened up. Like they ended up having open positions for SEO, and they also were really in need of a content director, and they had moved all their SEO people sort of into paid. So basically, that's how that position opened. And then they reached out to me and they said, "Do you want to come back and do our SEO and our content?" And I was like, "Yeah, that would be great."
And how exactly, or what exactly does Big C really do?
We're a digital marketing agency. So we do everything, but it's a lot of, for instance,
You
website
name it, we
building.
got it.
Yeah, pretty much. Website building, content creation. Um, we do, of course, paid advertising, although we have a separate division for that called Cordelia Labs, but I mean, they're a part of us. So, um, so yeah, we pretty much do it all.
Was, let's say, backed by your kind of experience in Python as well, or was this completely different?
That's exactly sort of what the project was centered on. So, it's something I did back at Pluralsight, and it definitely helped me with SEO, and I have a lot to say about what it taught me about SEO. I would preface it by saying that it's not a project I would like make a new SEO do necessarily. It's kind of tedious for something you could get. There's Google bot simulators and things like that where you could kind of get the same information. But the reason that I did it was I had a mentor at Pluralsight who was a front end dev, and I wanted to be better at coding. I have been coding since I was 12, but I wanted to be professional at it, and he was willing to help me with that. So we came up with a project we could do together as part of our mentorship program, and this was the one that was most like relevant to my expertise, was to build a web crawler. On top of that, um, we had this tool at Pluralsight that uh, did give us a lot of good information about content, an SEO tool. But like a lot of SEO tools, it gave a really high level like analysis of the content. And as I was getting more into the nitty gritty of things, I didn't want a high level analysis anymore. What I really wanted was to be able to look at a bunch of information really quickly. So, for instance, all of the headings for the top 10 pages, I just wanted to kind of see them and see what the structure was and the layout. I wanted to look at all the meta descriptions kind of next to each other. I didn't necessarily just want a list of like words that were on all the pages or something like that. So, what he and I talked about was making this other tool that maybe we could use, my team could use, where we didn't, if we wanted that kind of quick information, we could have it. So that's what the spider was, and it does have some natural language processing, but they were sort of separated, and it was a little bit of a lighter touch because, like I said, I wanted to see everything, like the bones of everything. Um, and it was a great coding practice. So I learned a lot about Python. He helped me, like, I learned it in a way where if I had been building it with other people, these are the tools we would use to code together and the processes of working together on a dev team. So that was amazing. And I know we're going to talk a little bit later about like training content creators and stuff. So that's really a lot of what I learned from the tool applies to that. But I think the most immediate and like first insight was that best practices, they're best for a reason. They really do help pages that are less competitive rank, and you can tell kind of instantly when you look at everything together that this page that has a very strong ranking relative to its domain really does everything right, and the headings are very nice and clean. Great research, great internal linking strategy, all of that. So for me, that was like, okay, I know these things work, but they do work, and here's the evidence. And yeah, it was helpful for that.
So, a couple of questions I have, and two of them are kind of minute. But one is, do you want to kind of maybe name the mentor just in case they are listening and they want to get some kind of. The second question would be, you started coding at 12 and then you kind of maybe drifted away from that. So, did you ever feel like wanting to go back into coding?
Oh yes, that was a big part of why we undertook this project, because I wanted to have that option in the future. And uh, Zach was very like, part of what we did in addition to building this tool was we talked a lot about how, if he were in my position, how we would go about getting into developing in the future, if that's something I want to do. And yes, I'm still very open to it, and I still practice and keep up with it. I Being a director at an agency does take up a lot of your time, and I'm happy in my position now, but I do my best to keep learning.
And the third question would be then, are you still using the web spider, or was that kind of like a test run type thing?
Oh no, I use it from time to time. L- m- I don't as much because I don't use. It's not that I don't use tools. That would be the wrong way to put it. I resort much more like to direct searches and looking at things on page now than I would, and like absorbing that information. So it's just that my process is slightly changed and I don't need it as much, but I definitely will if I want to get an overview. It's um, just popping a key. It's as easy as using Google basically. So I try to make it that way. So yeah, it's
Okay.
helpful still.
Uh, so then, so then to others who kind of have the similar idea, what kind of advice would you give them to kind of create their own spider or take some advice from the learnings already online?
Oh, they should. I mean, um, yeah, don't reinvent the wheel. Like the way that other people have done it, if you can find a nice guide, and I did find some nice guides. So I used Python, and specifically I used a library called Scrapey. There's another really good one called Selenium, and maybe if I was starting out now, I maybe would have gone with that one instead. But they're both great. And so you can find like good guides, and I'm sure there are some for Selenium too, that explain, exactly how to build one of these. Even one that does what mine did, which is like, try to simulate Google results in some kind of way. Or Google, like what a Google index process would look like. So, so yeah, you don't have to reinvent the wheel, and it is um that a lot can go wrong. Like everything in coding is repairing your own errors that you made, you know? So I don't think that you want to jump into it um, trying to do everything at once. And he and I took it really slowly. Like we made a list, me and Zach, of um, what we wanted to accomplish, and then tried to figure out what was reasonable to accomplish first, and then add down the line. But basically, I did rely on a lot of guides, and I do think if you want to just reproduce something someone else has done and you can get it to work, like that's amazing. And learn from there. It will teach you a lot about coding. You will make errors and you will have to figure out how to fix them. So it will be helpful to you. And I think more helpful than like trying to start completely from scratch where the potential to make mistakes is really, really high and maybe you can't resolve them.
Would using an AI tool help when you want to use coding, but you're not, let's say, experienced in coding?
Oh, I think so. Yeah, absolutely. And I haven't used them for that yet, but from everything I've been reading, it seems to be that I think that's how things are going to be done. And it sounds like Bard has gotten pretty good at writing code recently, so that may be somewhere to start. I really like Bard. I was going to talk about that later, but
Okay. We'll put a pin in that then. So one thing that I also wanted to know was that since you've got the experience in both SEO and in content, I was wondering if you can maybe draw a bridge for that and how pretty much you can use essential SEO concepts for content creators.
so I do really like working with content creators. I did a lot at Pluralsight. We had a program there called SEO Guild. And I ended up running the trainings for that. So it it wasn't just the content team, but it was in like the whole of marketing. But there were a lot of the content team there. Often we did a lot of training specifically for them because they have the most invested in SEO. And I do a lot of trainings for my team now. So there are a few things that I, always teach no matter what, like the first time we're going through how to optimize content. And a lot of it's the basics, like, I wouldn't, I think keyword alignment, the difference between, short tail and long tail keywords, basic things about web page structure are really important, which is kind of something I learned again from building that spider is understanding, and I show them like, what a web page code looks like and like what the different HTML tags do, just because I think it helps give them kind of the theory, which I appreciate. Heading hierarchy, stuff like that. But there are really like five big points that I like to hit on with content creators that I wish someone had taught me when I was learning. So I think the first one, the overarching one, and part of the reason why I show them, what does a web page actually look like, is that there's always more code than the crawler is ever going to need to understand the page. And really, a lot of what a crawler does and what I was doing when I was building mine is figuring out how to get it to ignore things that it doesn't need or like selectively choose what it needs. And so the more you can kind of control uh, what's on your page, I think the better it's just a better experience for the for the spider, and it just makes it easier, makes everything easier to understand. And I'll show them kind of like what a page that maybe has very bloated theme or something like that looks like, just to give versus something that's a little cleaner. I also teach them that tags have a hierarchy and it's not just headings, and it's kind of a natural thing. So I do teach them about heading hierarchy. I give them John Muller's like recent discussion about uh, why heading hierarchy is best practice. But I also show them, look at how much body text there is on a page. If you look at like we'll look at my spider, we'll look at a simulator. Look at this huge chunk of text that a natural language processor has to like sift through versus a small handful of anchor text versus like a little bit of alt text. Like you can just see automatically that there's more potential in these things for keyword alignment, and I feel like that helps them really understand like why those things are important, because otherwise it just feels like you're going through, well, go, I just have to do anchor text or something like that.
Right, right.
Yeah, and I like to give them again that background so that they can, so that it's not just these are the best practices and you have to do them, but they're like, no, I understand why we do these things. Another thing that I think is super important is like that there's a lot of signals to us that would make sense in the context of reading that you would think would make sense to a crawler but don't. So like you can index bold text, but actually bold text, like what is it for? You wouldn't know unless you're reading, Is it supposed to be a heading? Is it supposed to be emphasis? A lot of what I saw, like especially before I was training my team members, was they'd want to use bold text in replacement for a lot of different things when they could use a heading instead or something like that. And that's what I want them to think about is like, we know when we're looking at it, we know what that bold text means, but what is a spider? It's not going to be able to, understand that. So same thing with like large font, stuff like that.
How do you make sure that the team that you kind of train follow and keep up to these steps? Is there like a checklist involved, or?
A lot of my trainings, and especially now, are synced up directly to our processes. So we go through a handful of different ones. So we start with, I actually usually start with EEAT and helpful content. And the reason for that is uh, content creators are usually really good. They want to make helpful content and they're good at doing it. And so to just validate and be like, that's the goal here, and we start on that. It gets everybody on the same page. And then from there, I go and we talk about, I'll do one on web page structure where we go through all the things I just said. Um, and I'll do one where we look specifically at the tools we use. And so they do have a checklist on all their briefs for SEO. And all of those things that they're checking off are all individual points that they've been trained on. So it's like some of it's stuff that I'll fill out for them. I'll give them the keywords. I'll give them the metadata. I will give them like competitive results and stuff like that, and headings often too. But everything else, anchor text, alt text, making sure there's keyword alignment throughout the body. All that stuff is stuff that they have been trained on specifically, and they have to check off on a list.
Okay. But with SEO always being like an ever-changing industry, along with the introduction of AI and how it can help with marketing, how are you able to kind of keep your team on par with the ongoing kind of changes? Are you constantly training them, or do you have like a monthly training session?
It probably should be scheduled monthly and we just keep doing it. But realistically, that's what ends up happening. And we are at the point now where we do it ad hoc, and we kind of, if there's going to be an update or something, if there's, the last one we did, for example, was on AI prompting. because we are launching into, we're going to do an AI assisted project. We've done a little bit of AI assisted writing here and there, but now we're going to do a full blown. Um, this is what we've pitched to the client, and it's going to be a large resource center. So, yeah, we end up in practical terms, we do end up chatting about once a month, and it'll be on something that has specifically come up either in our work or in the news or something like that. Um, so I give them this baseline, and then yeah, this time we talked about um, how to prompt AI. So I showed them specifically what I do in ChatGPT and in Bard to get certain kinds of results and the process I go through. And then we looked at how to check, like use an AI checker to kind of see, um, what that picks up, an AI detection tool. Um, and and then yeah, anytime there's a major like uh an or an algorithm update or something going on in the news that they should know about, I pull them in and we have a conversation about it.
How exactly are you using AI as an assistant for the project? And what exactly are clients' reactions to that? Do they have a problem with it normally, or is it as long as you give me the content, I'm fine?
So I'll answer the second part first. We use it internally for our own material right now, and I think there's like kind of like obvious reasons for that, which is we want to make sure that it works, that it's something been a good process for us. Um, the the client that we have that is getting AI assisted writing is actually pretty excited about it. They have no blog content on their site at all at this moment, and they really want a lot of keyword growth. And so anything that we're able to offer them that allows them to build a resource center quickly and then keep building on it, I think they're happy with that. Um, I also think we the way we pitched it and what we do inside internally is we make a lot of changes. So we have a really talented content team with like a really impressive, you know, right. I'm not the only academic, for example, or researcher. We all have this really strong background in different kinds of writing. So there was never any question like that we weren't going to heavily edit this and add good research and make it our own. It's really just about uh, saving time in in certain places so that we can do more of that. And so far, it's been really good. I think the most resistance was almost internally, like, what are we gonna, what is AI gonna do to our jobs and this kind of thing. But once we actually started using it, yeah, yeah, so yeah, uh, I think my team got into it when we actually sat down and used it, then it was like, "Oh, I do enjoy editing this content," it's not the worst thing in the world, and it gives me more time to add research, add, you know, unique insights, things like that.
When you say you use detectors, have you noticed any, let's say, false negatives with that?
Yes, and we joke about
And
them
how
all
do
the
you
time.
kind of deal with it?
Emotionally, like, we there's not much we could do about it. It's always funny to see, the last time we looked, my the content creator, we were looking at the paragraphs. He's like, "There's no way it's the last paragraph. That's the one I edited the most," because we
That's
had
not
been
good.
scrolling down and we
Right.
weren't seeing it. And it was the last paragraph that was coming up. We were just, yeah, we just had to laugh about it because it was just, what do you do? And right now, I'll tell you if it changes, but my feeling about it is very laissez-faire. Like, if these detectors are recognizing human content, and thinking it's AI, that's everyone's problem in a way. Like, that's something where we're gonna have to figure out how to use these tools more effectively. So I'm right now not losing any sleep over it yet.
I think the thing with AI tools is that if you do try to make it grammatically correct, it doesn't believe a human can do that, and therefore automatically puts it as AI content. But it's just grammatically and punctuated properly.
I I would agree. I mean, my intuitive sense of it is that the benchmarkers that they're using are not, if they were actually like explained, they would not necessarily be what people would think of when they think of AI detection. They would be exactly the kind of thing you're saying. It's like basic grammatical or structural features that realistically like are not, they may be in a matter of probability, like this is more likely to be seen in the computer, but in practical everyday terms, like things don't usually work that way.
So with that detection problem at hand, and clients, let's say, not being entirely open to doing AI-assisted projects, do you kind of convince them the benefits of using it, or do you kind of go back to the traditional part of it?
Yeah, I mean, with anyone who wants traditional human content, like we're still very happy to do that. I think for our latest client in particular, they really want uh, a lot of established keyword growth, and the industry that they're in, um, it's hard to explain, but it's a lot of there is a lot of high volume, like not very competitive keywords where people are looking for essential information about it, like broad information. They want to know how to do X, how to do Y. So for them, it's kind of perfect. And it didn't really come up as a question because it was more an understanding of we want to get this quick growth and we're in the right position to do it, so let's just do it this way. I think, other clients um, would be more interested if there was like a cost savings to them. But a lot of them still want, because a lot of our clients are like, in healthcare or places where you really have to, there's a lot of vetting from their subject matter experts, insurance, stuff like that. And it has to be well researched and well written. So I think for them, they'll probably continue to get human content, but yeah, I would say that um, there are definitely places where people are open to AI, and it's just not a conversation. And if we weren't in that position, that we would just say, okay, well, you can buy blogs from us, in a regular way.
So in terms of, let's say, web analytics, we can pretty much break it up into 3 or 4 different sections, but we'll start with web analytics. How exactly can AI help out with that?
When I was thinking about this before I came here, obviously, like there are just certain ways that AI will improve, and really Google Analytics in a lot of ways is already on this track, right? Of you can query it in kind of natural language to get certain insights that you want. So I think obviously there'll be more of that. I think for me, what is going to be important with AI and web analytics is going to be the way it changes the metrics that we look at, and the way that we are, like, the way that we have to quantify success. So obviously, at the end of the day, we all want traffic, we all want conversions, we want revenue, and that is not going to change. Um, but one thing that I do a lot of is, because SEO is a long game, right? I do rely a lot on keyword rank and volume and things that I can measure in the short term to show to my clients, be like, hey, we're definitely getting somewhere, um, and we're on track to our goal. And because you can see a lot. I mean, I'm sure a lot of keyword gains in a very short period of time doing the right things. And so for now, that's wonderful. Um, I think in the future, I don't know what's going to happen with that, because I think that keyword volume and traditional understanding of rank is not going to be what where the game is. Um, it's going to be long tail keywords. It's going to be personalized, like specific information. We're going to go back to, are people reading this, right? Traffic, are they clicking on things? But how we're going to fill the short-term gap in growth, I don't know. So that's what I think about a lot. But in terms of, for the most part, the effect that it's had on me and my experience has been all positive. So so I'm optimistic.
Hopefully, it stays
Um,
that way.
yeah, exactly.
In terms of long tail keywords and let's say conversational search queries, this might not have to do with AI, but since you mentioned it, how do you see those changing and how can we, let's say, identify them in the future?
When you write this personalized or first person experiential content like that, that does seem to have a sort of natural, like, originality baseline or something to it. I think that's going to be kind of the broader reality that we all live in. Um, you will know first, or you'll know original content to some extent because it's experiential, first person, blah blah blah. And so there's that piece of it, and then there's the other piece of being able to serve people up results that are very specific to who they are, what they're looking for, everything that we've wanted and been doing up to this point that we'll now be able to do on a much bigger scale and with much more impact. So I think ultimately that results in long tail keywords and full sentence queries being what we're going to be targeting. And so for tools for that, actually, there's already some good ones, right? Answer the Public, I think, will still be great. I think Ahrefs does a really good job with long tail keywords. But I use Bard a lot for generating queries. I think I use ChatGPT to generate like body text and outlines, but Bard is, and maybe one day I'll just use Bard. If I think right now it's not as good at writing as I would like. But for prompting, what kinds of questions are people going to be asking about a topic? It will pull from people also ask. It seems to, it has an understanding of like search parameters and search results. So it won't always generate questions that you would see and people also ask, but I find them to be like really good uh for like they sound like things people would be searching for even if I don't see them in featured results. So I really like Bard for figuring out like how to phrase things that would be in line with people's search queries.
Three books that you would recommend our viewers and listeners?
I would be happy to. And actually I have so two marketing pieces and then one I had to bring in because I'm an English professor, or I was, and I have to recommend literature. So I'll start with that one. Um, so my specialty was Shakespeare, and my elevator pitch for why I think everyone should read Shakespeare is that it makes you hyper literate, which I think is really important in modern day. Like I think we underestimate so much of our world, and especially because we now all live in these legal channels. Like so much of our world is being able to understand things people are saying to us and the things that we have to read and like put our name on and stuff. Being able to read at like Shakespeare's just like it's like taking a fast course into being really good at reading, and super hyper literate. So that's my part, and the other part of it is that there's a lot of really good insights still, even though it's old, about leadership and power. And I think people need to understand those things in our modern world. And it's all, especially if you're an American, this was all stuff that informed like the way that early Americans thought about like the Constitution and things. I think it's really important for that. So that's my Shakespeare elevator pitch. So one is, I think I do like Neil Patel's podcast, and I think it's helpful to just get marketing insights. I think it's helpful to just get you know um, a quick rundown of like what's going on. But then for SEO specifically, and I know this is a classic, but I think it's worth mentioning. Eli Schwartz's product-led SEO. Um, I like anything that has like a theory. So it'll give you like a a really high, especially even if you're, I think especially if you're early in your career, just like a lot of advice is very granular, or it's very tactical. Here's how to do specific things. So anytime you can get an overview that's just like, here's the theory of SEO, I think that's super helpful. So those things.
Content marketing. There's been a lot of changes throughout the years, but what can you say about 2023 and beyond?
I know we've like almost beat it to death, but I really don't think you can get around. It's going to be about AI, and specifically, it's going to be about everybody figuring out where's AI supposed to live in our world, and it's going to be a lot of speculation, which I've done plenty of here, and that's fine. And people feeling around. So in a way, I think it's going to be we it's gonna have a lot of impact without us knowing what that impact actually is, or, like, being in the world that it's gonna be in the future, which is a weird place. Um, so, I think from, um from an SEO perspective, uh, I think doubling down, following what Google's, like, what they've said and what they've implied in their changes, and in the things that they're rolling out, about we're doubling down on our commitment to original and helpful content. That is what we want to serve people. I think that getting underneath everything, and realizing that that's the goal and that's what we're moving into, is like going to be the most important and stabilizing thing. So what I'm really optimistic about, and maybe it won't be 2023, it might not be 2023, but it might be in the future, is there is going to be a time when we can really align on, if I have something that I know is helpful to people because of my experience with clients or in an industry or something that traditionally was hard to get keyword alignment on, that I'm gonna be able to have that in the future. That, like, I won't have to worry about it as much. I just have to worry about really solving people's business problems, and really giving them helpful advice. And I'm gonna get more assistance on the search engine side for that content. That's where I'm banking, and, like, putting putting all my money in bets and stuff. So we'll see how that works out. But
If everyone is using AI to create content, how is Google going to rank the content? And two, with search generative experience, how do other people expect to rank their content?
And I mean, and again, a lot of people are, talking about this, especially on social media, right? Speculating about what's going on. And my sense of it from my experience, but also in accordance, I think, with what other people have said, which is why I feel more comfortable saying it, is that, a lot of it now, if AI can write it and quickly, and it's helpful to people, then AI should write it, and we should not. We should focus on things that are more specific, that AI can't do, that are equally helpful to people. The flip side of that is, uh, we will now be writing to get citations from AI. So to get them to get that the generative experience to cite our work, and that'll be like a new kind of featured result, basically. Um, so it'll be a sort of mix of those two things, is what I think is happening.
So, Dr. Kate, thank you so much for this chat. It's been lovely. I've actually learned quite a bit. I think you kind of explained it also in a very bite-sized manner. You didn't ramble on and on. No worries. It was
Okay.
not like a lecture at the university. And if it was, I'm very hopeful that people do take it in a good way and not like tune out. But thank you so much for joining this chat. It was really good.
Thank you. I really appreciate you having me, and this was a great experience. And I really enjoy your podcast, so it'll be wonderful to be part of it. I appreciate you very much.
Thanks for watching that episode. I hope you enjoyed. For more videos like this, make sure you like and subscribe.